Hello, this is Congressional Update with Michael Capuano. I'm Sarah Fishman. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Sarah.
Mike is not wearing his coat because it's hot in here, just in case anyone wonders.
Yeah,
Normally, he's totally,
Air conditioning is a
yeah,
problem.
something is awry. So how are you doing? We haven't talked in a couple of months, and many things
Really?
have happened since then. We didn't talk last month, at least.
I don't remember.
We have the Paris Accord pullout, we have travel ban changes, we have all sorts of things happening. I want to start with, but not dwell on, Donald Trump Jr. being in meetings in which he's been accused of perhaps colluding with the Russians in fixing the presidential election last year. Now, first of all, what do you make of the whole thing?
I think it tells you why there is an investigation going on and why we need an independent investigator to, do a thorough, thoughtful job that we can all trust. We're hoping that Mr. Mueller will do that. I expect he will. But I think most of us would feel even better if we had a totally independent person who couldn't be fired by the President of the United States.
So can you explain this? I've asked you this before, but can you explain the distinction between what Mueller is doing versus what Congress would initiate as an
Mueller
independent?
is technically working for the president. Now, he has been appointed by the U.S. attorney, I believe it was, who appointed him, or maybe the FBI director. But he can be fired by the president.
Right.
It's the exact same thing that Richard Nixon did to Archibald Cox. What we've wanted is somebody appointed by the Congress to do an independent investigation, not run by Congress, but somebody outside to do it, because that person could not be fired by the president.
But is there any difference in content or scope?
In theory, there wouldn't be, no.
Huh.
But he'd be working for the Congress instead of for the very people
But
he's
could-
technically investigating.
Could a taxpayer say why the both? Is that worth
Sure they could, but I think most taxpayers understand that when you get to this kind of a problem that you want the truth.
Yeah.
I want to be real. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am not looking to find a problem with the president. I am looking to find the truth. And if there is no problem, I'll be the first to say, no harm, no foul.
Do you think, I don't know how to phrase this, but it seems right now that there's so much focus on who did what and who was where when and blah, blah. It almost reads like a soap opera script to me.
It does,
And
not
I
just to
can't-
you, to all of us.
Well, I can't tell where any substance may or may not lie. Unless Trump is in a room saying something treasonous directly, blah, 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 recorded, there's not anything that can be legally done?
At this point in time, that's a fair question, which is why everybody who's calling for impeachment, I think, needs to take a deep breath. Not because we won't get there. Richard Nixon didn't break into the Democratic National Headquarters. Others did it. Richard Nixon got in trouble because he obviously knew about it, he sanctioned it, and then he participated in the cover-up. We don't know whether Donald Trump has done that
And it
yet.
also was in stages, because I remember, this is my earliest political memory, him sitting at a desk and saying, here are tapes, and then like a few weeks, months later, saying, here are the rest of the tapes.
Here's Donald Trump Jr. saying, I never met with anybody related to Russia at all. And then when he was found to have done exactly that, he said, we only met to talk about adoption. And then that was proven untrue. He said, well, nothing came of the meeting anyway. So, why not just tell the truth at the first place? There may not be anything illegal with Donald Trump Jr. having met with the people he met with.
He's not elected. He's not.
Well, but Mr. Manafort was a campaign manager, and Jared Kushner now has, security clearance. So there may or may not be anything illegal for that meeting alone, but there's certainly something illegal lying to the FBI about it and trying to do a cover-up on it.
I mean, that's why Clinton was impeached. It
Well,
wasn't
that's
for
why
his actual act,
most
but
people
for
with
lying to
white-collar
the-
crime, most politicians get more in trouble for the cover-up and lying to investigators under oath than they do for the actual
That's why
activity.
it's in the Ten Commandments, maybe.
Well, I
Don't do the lying thing. My mother always said I was a terrible liar. She suggested, don't do it for its own sake, but don't do it because it can get you in trouble.
Let's also don't do it because you got to remember which lies you told to which people, which is very difficult for people like me.
Spreadsheet, said too, Mike said too, yes. All right, so I don't know what my further question is. It's something along the lines of how much do Democrats press on this? How much do people who are not in the Trump administration press on this? What?
Look, I am no different than anybody else. I'm a little tired of the drip, drip, drip of the news, but that
Yes.
doesn't mean I don't want the investigation going on. I very much want the investigation to go on. I hope that Mr. Mueller does a thorough investigation that we can all rely on, regardless of what he comes up with. But again, I still believe that we would all be better off and more reliable if we had an truly independent investigator. Mr. Mueller's reputation is very good. Everything I've heard about him is all good. We have no reason to believe he would put his thumb on the scale, but unfortunately we have to wait and see what comes out of it.
Yeah. It just, I don't know potentially a partisan comment, but I don't understand why X thing happens and then Y tweets go out and then Z comments are made that contradict previous communication. I mean,
nothing is that simple. I mean, it's not like
no,
you
but
caught
I've
somebody
heard
with a
some
gun.
people say that this is historic. I mean, that it's very unprecedented that something would happen at this level, presidential, and then people would go back on their very word at this level. So, I mean, I heard one
I don't
commentator
know. I
say
mean,
that.
I was relatively young when the Nixon situation was going on.
You were not younger than I was.
Well, that's true, but I wasn't paying detailed attention to it. I mean, it was clear what was going on, but it took a long time to unravel.
That's true.
And this is probably even more so because you have so many different moving parts,
Yeah.
so many different players who may have violated the law, and so many potential lies going on. But again, look, there are people who think there's nothing there. There are people who think that the impeachment should have happened last week. I am at the point where I want the investigation to continue so we have a thorough situation that we can base our judgment on. What did the president do, if anything, and when did he do it? I think absent that, it is conjecture. I think it's unfair to any accused person. I wouldn't want anyone accused of a wrongdoing to be convicted before the hearing and before the investigation. Why would I want the president? That would make me just like them. So it's troubling to me that people I generally agree with, some, have been pushing so hard to have the impeachment right now. And it's also troubling to me that some people on the other side say, why are you even bothering?
Yeah.
You know, there was clearly an attempt by a foreign government to influence our election. I don't think they actually succeeded at it. I don't know, but they tried. If that doesn't concern you, I'm sorry, you're wrong.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on. So healthcare legislation. Could you give us a little update as to where we are with the Senate version of the
Senate came up with another version the other day with a few tweaks to it. We haven't got the actual official numbers yet as to what its impact is, but the initial reports are that they've cut it all the way down to only 15 million Americans being thrown off of health insurance. I'm not sure that number's accurate yet. We'll find out hopefully this week. But they're way down to that, which is kind of laughable that that's some kind of success. And on top of that, you know, wealthy people are getting a little bit less of a tax cut, but they're still getting a pretty good one.
I don't understand. How come tax cuts are even in healthcare legislation?
Because when we passed the healthcare law, somebody has to pay for it.
Right.
And we had to raise taxes on some people in order to do that. Now, you could argue which taxes we raised, were they right, wrong, or indifferent. That's fair. But you can't say we didn't need revenue to pay for it. How do you pay for health
So
insurance
that's
without paying
never
for
a
it?
separate vote?
It shouldn't be.
Okay.
If I'm a fiscal conservative when it comes to paying for things. I firmly believe that if you want something, you should be willing to pay for it. And if you're not willing to pay for it, you shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
And health insurance is the same. If you want all Americans to have health insurance coverage, then somebody has to pay for that, and it should be part of the bill.
Okay, so at the risk of focusing too much on numbers, we have 50 Democrats, and all of them are presumed to be voting against the Senate legislation.
48 Democrats. 6 Democrats and 2 independents that vote like Democrats.
Right. Now, is that a correct assumption that all those people will?
At this point in time, again, you won't know till the vote comes, but right now,
Because I can think of 1 or 2 people who.
they have indicated that they will not vote for this.
Okay. Then on the Republican side, we have.
Of the 52 members that they have, 2 of them have already publicly stated they will not vote for this version.
Right.
There are still 6 to 10, depending how you count, Republicans out there who said they would not vote for an earlier version, but have not yet commented on this version.
All right, so 48, 52. There are 2 who said, so then it's 48-48.
Well, 50-50,
So-
yes.
50-50, sorry. So then Pence could come in and break a tie.
Pence would break the tie.
But if McCain is not around,
That's why they won't have the vote until Mr.
right,
McCain comes
okay.
back.
So then that's how that goes. All right, very complicated arithmetic there. I was like, so what do you think is going to happen?
I have no idea. Look, I've said from day one, before I voted for the ACA, I publicly stated in at least 2 different postings that are still up on my website, my concerns with the ACA. Since that's happened, there are other concerns that have come to my attention that I didn't foresee. Now, people
Like
say,
what?
Different ways, some of the impact of the economics, some of the things that are covered and not covered, things like that. Real detailed stuff, but I'd like to fix them all. And I'm sure there are other things that I'd be open to discussing with people have seen that I haven't seen.
There was a medical equipment.
There's a medical equipment tax that I never liked.
There's
a super iPad that I don't like. There's a whole bunch of things. But I still voted for the bill because it insured more Americans. It was a step in the right direction. When they first passed Medicare, it wasn't a perfect bill. They had to amend it many times since then. It's the same thing with this. There were things I knew beforehand, but I don't get to write the bill. No one does. It's written by a group, and therefore there's always going to be something in a big bill like that you don't like. But in the final analysis, I was very clear that I thought that overall this was
Too
worth
complicated
voting
to even understand it all.
for. It is complicated, and I actually think it was too complicated.
Yeah.
What if you had made me emperor, or if you made me emperor today, I'd get rid of it and put in Medicare for everybody. That's
There
what
are
I
no
would do.
emperor slots.
No emperors,
no,
it's
not right
not
now.
available at the
Sorry.
moment.
So, Medicaid. Okay, so one of the ways all those people got covered was it not the case that under Obama, Medicaid got expanded? And that's
It
how a
was
lot
pursuant to the ACA, yes.
right, so that's how people
It was part of the plan.
right,
Not everybody,
gained
but some.
coverage.
Not everybody.
Right, but how the numbers went up.
That's right.
Okay, so if Medicaid is cut, then ...
Yes.
And so people have said there are cuts in the healthcare legislation, but there's also no budget. So even if you tinker with what's in the healthcare legislation, you could still not.
Oh, yeah. They could still not fund it.
Right.
And here's the problem. Part of the legislation, Medicaid is generally run by the states. It's a federal government law that is operated and run by the states, like many things, community development block grants, school lunches, housing programs. Those are federally funded pursuant to a certain categories that we have. Then we give the money to the states, and they come up with a few more details, and they're the ones who actually say, you get $5, somebody else gets $6, pursuant to formulas and some of their own decisions. In this particular case, it's the same thing. We have done all that, and if we don't fund it, it's the states that are going to have to look at Sarah Fishman and say, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts says you no longer have health insurance. Why do you think the governors are so up in arms?
Yeah.
It's the
They
federal
just
government.
met last week and they were like, eh.
Republican and Democrat.
Yeah, both.
Because the federal government said to the states, you do it, this is how we're going to do it, and now the federal government's going to renege on their original plan. The governors are sitting here saying, wait a minute, you're leaving me holding the bag. I am going to get blamed for cutting 1 million people off of health insurance in my state. So I don't blame them for being upset.
Did you hear what Baker said?
No.
He was, I guess I heard him on NPR. They were talking about how much he supported or didn't support what was happening in DC, and he said, all I know is I want my waiver. I just want my waiver to be okay, and that I have to go and lobby for that because you don't automatically get renewal.
That's right.
You have to go down and you have to make your case.
But the waiver comes
just
with
want my
money.
waiver.
But that's what everybody says. And if
Yeah.
all states get their waivers and the funding for those waivers, there's no problem.
Yeah.
But of course, that will not happen.
So, okay. So how many states expanded Medicaid under Obama? Was it like 13 or something like that?
I don't know the number, something like that, a bunch. A
Okay.
lot of big states. And a lot of red states, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. So what do you think will happen?
I don't have a clue. This is part of the problem. We don't know where it's going to go. Is Senator from Ohio? We have the Republican governor from Ohio who ran for president, did very well. A lot of people think very highly of John Kasich. Has publicly said that this bill, even the current bill, is horrendous for Ohio, and that I can't remember.
Well,
how
he's
many
like a
people-
budget meister. He's not
Well,
going
he's a budget guy, and he's a conservative guy, but he's not a crazy conservative guy. And he said this particular bill is not good for Ohio. Now, you tell me, what does a Republican senator from Ohio then do?
Yeah.
Who is both friends with the governor and represents the very same people.
So Sherrod Brown is the Democrat.
He's a Democrat. Rob Portman is a
Rob
Republican.
Portman
And I'm
is
just
the-
using
yeah.
them as an example. They're not the only ones, but they're
Right.
kind of Kasich has been pretty outspoken on this.
Yeah. But, okay, so there are a group of senators who might balk, in addition to Susan Collins is one.
Well, she's already said she's not voting for
She's
this
not,
bill.
and then who was the other one who's
Rand Paul, from completely
right,
different
for
reasons.
different reasons.
Rand
But
Paul said
then-
it doesn't go far enough. Susan Collins says it goes too far.
I know. That's just so,
Those are two Republicans
that just
saying
shows you something. I don't know
Yeah.
what, but yeah. But then Lisa Murkowski from Alaska.
There's a whole bunch of
There are a
little-
bunch of them that are question marks.
Yeah.
Although they put in some sort of, I don't know, some sort of spending that only Alaska would qualify for. There was some sort of.
There's all kinds of, that's exactly what they're doing now.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out, okay, if you're a senator and we need your vote, what do we need to give you to
Right.
get your vote? And people are being bought off. Now,
Yeah.
can they be bought off and help their states, or are they going to be bought off for a bridge? That's up to them. And you may not know it the day they vote, but you'll find out about it eventually.
All right, this
and
is
then
a-
they're going to have to go back to their voters and explain it to them.
Right. So this is a wonderful segue into the article that was in the Globe that discussed your possible opposition next year, in the race next year for the 7th District. So you might be opposed by this Cambridge City Council person named Nadeem Mason, and he's a 33-year-old MIT grad and entrepreneur. And you were being interviewed, and this is sort of a softball, and you were being told, well, what do you think about all this? And you said,
I don't know.
You said two things about why you think you're still effective. You don't remember?
I don't remember.
Okay, you said, one, I get the job done, and two, Congress recognizes seniority,
Both
which
are
you
true.
have. And then you were asked, and here's the softball question, you were asked, are you part of Trump's swamp?
Oh.
Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, I do, actually.
So what did you say?
I said, I assume he considers everyone in the 7th Congressional District part of the swamp, and if he does, then I'm proud to be living in that particular
Okay, so then the
swamp.
question is, if that is the statement made,
You
does
did bring
that
it up.
make you a swamp thing?
I guess so.
I hope that fits you.
All right.
Catch. Okay, so
Thank you.
that was a softball. Get it? So, okay.
You went out and did this, huh, sir?
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did it, and I was very proud of myself, and then I was too embarrassed to show my husband. So that's probably about right.
Yeah, it's about right.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the opposition question. So is that the first since 1998?
No, we've had opposition before.
But
you know,
Not, because the Globe
we've
article...
had people. Well, first of all, he's not a formal candidate, so I
Yes.
don't know whether they'll have.
What does it mean to file a statement of
It means
candidacy?
you can raise money. Let's see if he does.
That's what I thought, because it just announces sort of who's your... He filed a statement of candidacy.
With the FEC.
Well, and that sort of just the only thing on there is a name and address for a campaign committee.
Right.
So that's what it is?
That's all it is.
Yeah, okay.
You know, you have to go out and raise money and put an organization together. And
Right.
talk. He has, to my knowledge, he hasn't done any of that.
Yeah.
I've had other people. You know, I had one person running against me. I've had other people consider running against me. That's fine. It's a free country. If that's what they do, that's okay. Look, I'm no different than anybody else. Of course, I would rather be anointed. Who wouldn't? But if there's going to be opposition, so be it. We'll see what happens.
I think what you said in the article was that if you dropped out, there would be 15 good people
There would be.
who would be at it, just as 20 years ago there were a slew of people.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think, you know, if I were to leave, not because I'm such a great guy, but people understand that it's hard to run against an incumbent for lots of different reasons.
Yeah.
It's a big district. How many people in Somerville know anybody in Mattapan? The answer is not many.
Yeah.
You know, we just, you know, and same vice versa.
Right.
Therefore, that's the reason it's hard to run against an incumbent. Plus, I think I've been doing a decent job. A lot of people know me now, but we'll see. If somebody wants to run, I can't stop them. It's a free country. They can do it. They have to meet the same qualifications I do, have to do all the same things I have to do. We'll see if he runs. And if he runs, good luck to him. But I'm running as well. I want to be real clear about that. I intend to seek re-election. I want to be around when the Democrats take the majority back. And I would like to be around for new Democratic leadership.
You have been in office more under minority than majority
Yes, I
leadership.
have. And it's
Significantly.
and it is much more fun and much more effective to be in the majority.
Yeah.
Proof positive, in the 18 years I've been there, I've been in the majority 4 years. In that 4 years, we got the health care bill done,
Yeah.
which has dominated the discussion for years, good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
What did they do during that 16 years that they had the majority? The answer is virtually nothing you can remember except slowly twist everything, slowly tighten everything and cut everything one step at a time. And I think that's pretty proof positive that being in the majority is worth doing.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine frustration, if not. So.
It's not frustration. I mean, for me, it's frustration with sometimes my own party is why do we keep doing things to put us into the minority? Why? You know, and I think that to me is more frustrating than opponents winning on occasion. That's what America wants. If that's what they want, good luck. I don't think that's really what America
So what
wants.
does the Democratic Party, since you've raised this, what does it have to do to reassert itself?
Most importantly, I think we need to refocus our discussion, not so much what we do, but how we talk about it. Healthcare is a classic example. The entire time we talked about health care, and even now, we talk about it in terms of the 15 to 20% of the people who did not have health insurance, which is great, but anybody who cares about that is already with us. We don't talk about the 80% of the people that had health insurance before the ACA and how this is good for them, how this is good for their children, how this is good for their society, and how it's worthwhile doing. And I think that's just one example. It goes on and on. We don't talk. Again, it's not what you do, it's how you present it to people. We made it too complicated. Why not do it simply? Again, Medicare, expand Medicare.
Yeah.
People understand Medicare, they like Medicare, not that it doesn't have its problems, but they understand it, it's
That
an
was
existing
going to be
system.
one, I think you had suggested, or others did, that would be a segue into some sort of single-payer system. That would
Medicare
be
is a
the,
single-payer system.
yeah,
to a
that would be
certain
the way to
extent.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 1,000 ways to do it. I just thought that politically and governmentally it was easier to explain. Explaining the ACA to the average person is very difficult. And because part of it, I don't really understand all
Well,
the
this
moving
is a
parts.
long-term congressional problem. When I worked on Capitol Hill, there was one time my boss had a copy of the Paperwork Reduction Act.
Yeah,
And it's
it's
like
this
this
thick,
thick.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is a problem. All right, let's go local a little bit. First of all, you were on the picket line with the nurses at Tufts Medical Center. That's unusual, right? This is the first nurses strike
In quite a while. I don't
in
know
quite a
exact-
while.
yeah.
So last year, Marty Walsh was mediator, as Boston mayor, mediator, and there was a strike averted at Brigham and Women's Hospital. So why was he offered in this case also to be a mediator, but that was declined, or?
I don't know. I'm not in the middle of all those discussions. I mean, look,
Well,
difficulties happen between management and unions, always have. It's not new, it's old. The question is whether you're willing to talk. And for me, the reason I went is because the management of Tufts, look, I'm very supportive of the hospital. I don't want it to have a problem. But I also really think it's important to talk.
Yeah.
And maybe you're not going to come to an agreement, maybe you're going to yell at each other, but you need to be understanding of trying and at least getting at the table, and at least being at the point where you can yell at each other.
so was there
And that's-
some meeting with the president that was supposed to happen, and then he wasn't available? And
I don't know. I mean, but it just,
Something like that.
in this particular case, the nurses had, up until, I guess today was the first day, but they were locked out for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Locking out, your employees is, it's an extreme step when, they wanted to go back to work, and I just think that was a mistake.
It must cost a lot of money too to do that.
I guess, I don't know how it's going to help the hospital in the long run to be
Yeah.
doing what this up and down thing. And again, I don't know the numbers on the table, and I'm not negotiating
Yeah.
on behalf of anybody. But I do know that if you're not talking, there's no way to come together.
Yeah.
And the fact that the management locked them out, to me, it was a mistake.
Okay. All right, another local issue, also with a change today. So there's this MIT janitor who is possibly going to be deported. Can you briefly explain what the
Well, he's
circumstances
been here
are?
illegally for a while, but he's worked at MIT for quite a while. He's well respected and loved in the community. He has a family here, and we're trying to help him stay. He wants to stay, but he was unable to clarify his status before this happened. And this is just another situation that here's a person who's contributing to the society, wants to be a member of the society. He's not a criminal, has no criminal record at all.
He's
that
here
I'm aware.
legally. He's here on a stay, right?
At the moment he is. He wasn't for a while. At the moment he is. And we're just working hard to try to get him the opportunity to become a
So
citizen.
is your office doing actually?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. So there's a hearing today, isn't there, to
I
determine?
don't know. I think so.
Because there was supposed to be one on Friday, and
yeah,
then there
I think
was
that's right.
relief granted till today. So what do you think is going to happen with that?
I don't know. I mean, it's been very tough the last several months. I mean, the Trump administration has been, and again, I'm not talking about individual cases now, but in general, the Trump administration has been very vehement about trying to find people everywhere.
How much does it cost to deport a person?
I don't know. A lot. And I don't, look, I am not opposed to deporting. I'm in favor of deporting criminals. I think that's fine. No one's trying to protect that. And I'm not, to me, we're working on an individual case at the moment. That's really not what I want to be doing.
This is a really poor example, I think.
Of course there is. There are many of them,
to
though.
me.
I will tell you, we work on these things all the time. This particular one has come to the forefront because he's a member of a union. But we do this all the time
Yeah.
when it comes to helping people. And for me, this is a classic example of why we need comprehensive immigration reform.
Yeah.
Who can be here? It's a fair question.
Okay,
what are
so
we going to
now
do with the
this
millions of people who are here
So in
illegally?
this revised travel ban, you can come to the country if you have a bona fide relationship with a family, educational, or business tie to the country, right? And that applies to parents, spouses, fiancés, children, but not grandparents.
Not grandparents, not uncles, not
Right,
aunts.
so there was some federal action, wasn't there, at the end of last week saying,
Another court decided that it was too broad.
yeah, include the grandparents, they're really family, they're family. So, and now the Trump administration is seeking to have the grandparent exemption reversed.
Yes.
Okay, so, same question, what do you think is going to happen?
I have no idea. Look, my fear is that I think the president might have the authority to do this, but I'll let the courts decide that. But whether he has the authority or not doesn't make it right. You know, he's picked 7 countries and to say that people are not allowed to come here for
And one was, it's now only 6, right?
is it? Okay, I don't know,
Yeah.
6. And it's just because of you don't get to pick where you're born.
Yeah.
And I was just in Jordan at a refugee camp full of
When was
Syrian
that?
refugees last week.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I will tell you that I asked a specific question. I was with a majority of number of Republicans to the person in charge of doing the vetting and has been doing it now for years. I said, let me ask you a question. Has the Trump, and this is at a refugee camp in Jordan for Syrian refugees.
Yeah.
I said, has the Trump administration either asked you or directed you on how to increase the vetting? And the answer was no, neither one. And yet here we are in July. No court case ever said the administration couldn't punch up the vetting. They simply said you can't have an outright ban.
Right.
They could have been doing this all along if there's something they can do. I said, is there anything you would suggest we do? She said, well, look, it already takes at least 18 months, and that's a fast situation. It usually takes 2 years or more.
And it took that long with was it an Iranian family, a scientist that you had helped? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. That was
It
just
took about
recently.
2 years.
Yeah, they all do.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, if you can increase the vetting, happy to do it. How? Tell me specifically how we can
So
do
what
more
did they
than
say?
The answer is they don't know. The people actually doing the work don't know because they're doing everything they can do. And by the way, to my knowledge, no refugee immigrant has ever committed an act of,
Terrorism?
that I'm aware of. And that's, look, that's my problem.
Yeah.
I am not for letting terrorists into the country. Of course not. And I do believe in vetting. I think we're doing a pretty good job. And if there was specific things that we could be doing to make it even more stringent, do it.
Yeah,
You don't have to shut down just to make
Yeah.
a statement. Just do it.
yeah. All right, on that very clear note, we have to stop. This has been Congressional Update. I'm Sarah Fishman. Have a good day.
Thank you.